So today we're going to be looking at skilling up for e-learning, what you need to know. If you are designing e-learning in-house, then unfortunately there's quite a lot that you need to know. We're going to be talking through about the different roles involved in e-learning, how the roles that are maybe in an organization like Orion, an e-learning company, how they need to be mirrored within your own in-house development. We're going to talk a little bit about the challenges to that. We are going to introduce you to Orion's approach to capacity building. So in terms of training and some of the resources that we offer for internal content authors. So everybody should be able to see my screen. At the moment you should be looking at the webinar title. Okay, to introduce myself, my name is Gavin Woods. I'm the Business Development Manager with Orion Learning. I would be involved in going out and speaking to our client organizations, scoping out requirements, finding out what people are doing in-house, what some of their common challenges are. So I would also be involved in communicating about our capacity building services in conjunction with our training coordinator and all our trainers who would be involved in training in-house teams in particular niche areas of e-learning development or in overall topics such as authoring tools and instructional design. What we're going to look at today, I'm going to give you a very brief intro to Orion Learning, just tell you a little bit about us if you don't know about us. We're going to talk about what makes a good e-learning course. Now, this is largely my opinion coming through, so I'm sure that we're going to have quite an extensive questions section at the end of the webinar, so be interested to see other people's opinions, and we have a poll with that in mind as well. We're going to talk about the in-house development process, either some of the stages you might see. Some of it might be new to you, some of it you might be familiar with, but hopefully everybody, no matter what stage you're at, will be able to take something to maybe enhance what you're doing, to think about what skills you need, and maybe places you can go to get those skills in-house or externally. And we're going to talk about the skills, both that are involved in the process, but also with the key aspects of what makes a good course. We're then going to introduce you to Orion's approach to capacity building, and we're going to give you some tips that we've gathered. So we would have helped over 50 organizations who are developing their own e-learning in-house, and that's in addition to our experience in developing custom content for a whole range of organizations across different sectors. And then the bit that I actually like answering questions more than I like delivering the content. So hopefully we can have a good discussion and questions. And I've got my colleague Kira on hand who's going to be able to field your questions as we go through and pick those out. And we also have one of my colleagues, Chris, and Chris would be one of our e-learning designers. So he's very proficient in the use of authoring tools, etc. So hopefully between the three of us, if we can't answer your question today, we'll definitely get you an answer and get that across to you in the next couple of days. We do have a hashtag for Twitter. It's design, build, deliver. It sounds a little bit like a Stevie Wonder song, but if you want to tweet, if you're into tweeting, you can tweet using that hashtag. So say a 30-second introduction to Orion. I don't want to spend a lot of time focusing on us per se. We are an e-learning company. We operate throughout the UK and Ireland and further afield. We have three broad business areas. So we design e-learning content for organizations. So we might work collaboratively with our clients to turn a policy or an area like induction or really any area. We bring the expertise in online learning, and quite often our clients are bringing the expertise in their particular subject matter. But we help them to work through what are the best options to turn that into an engaging e-learning course. We also provide a range of platforms such as learning portals or learning management systems that can help you deliver your content to a particular audience and track and report. But the bit that we're going to focus on today is really around our training and support. And Orion, like to think we're fairly unique in our approach to capacity building. We recognize that a lot of organizations, for various reasons, want to develop e-learning in-house. We have a lot of focus on helping people to do that. Maybe the industry as a whole has been a little bit slow to do that because it's counterintuitive. Train our clients to do what we do, and they don't need us anymore. But we find actually the reverse is true. People get a lot of benefit out of our capacity building services, and there's nothing better than producing a good quality course yourself. And we find that clients come back to us to supplement that maybe with niche training or niche services when they recognize maybe there's some skills that they don't have in-house. In terms of who we work with a whole range of organizations across different sectors, everyone from Tourism Ireland through to Disney in the States. So that's producing custom content, very different subject matters, but the big theme that hopefully you'll get through today is really we're all about the learning. Everybody has something to teach, and when you're doing that in-house, it's about being able to teach effectively and having the skills and resources to do that. We're going to ask a poll, so we're going to launch a poll, and what is the most important aspect in a good learning course? So hopefully you should see a poll appearing. Okay, so we're going to ask you to respond. So what's the most important aspect in a good e-learning course? So select one of the following. Either that it looks attractive, it features interactivity, it teaches me something, it can be tracked and reported on, or something else. So you should be able to see, you're all very good. I can see answers coming in. I'm going to share that in just a minute. So we'll just give you another few seconds to respond to the poll. Okay, and I'm just going to close that. So if you haven't responded, you got about 10 seconds left. Okay, we'll close that, and I'm going to share that on screen. Well, you're a very good bunch. You're a very good bunch. I say you've picked the response that we like to see. It teaches me something. I would say there's not necessarily a right answer. I think a lot of these things do fill in. So we've got 2% for it looks attractive, 15% for it features interactivity, 75% for it teaches me something, 7% can be tracked and reported on, and 2% for something else. If you're in the 2% of something else, if you want to maybe pop into the questions tab and maybe your comments about that or into the chat, it'd be good for Kira to keep track of that, and we can discuss that. We're very big advocates of teaching, good instructional design, that the courses would help you to change your behaviors. I suppose it depends who you are within an organization. If you're a compliance officer, then maybe the most important thing is that it can be tracked and reported on, that you've got that record to show from a compliance perspective, if you're in a highly regulated industry, that the training has been done. But yes, we very much think learning comes first. Technology is an enabler to that. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the aspects, maybe from my opinion, that make a good e-learning course. So in terms of what makes a good course, I put them in the order. So when we talk about it teaches me something, I think a good course has instructional design in it. So it is educationally effective, and that's probably the most important thing. I would sacrifice visual appeal if the course was actually helping me to do something better. So a course might be a short little nugget that helps me to do a task, maybe an element of just-in-time learning, or if it's linked to a policy, maybe it's something that helps me change my behaviors, change the way I think. Instructional design, yes, has an element of educational theory, just for anybody who's not familiar with instructional design. I talk about it as well, about rewiring the mindset for what works well in an online setting. So there are different blends of content that can be brought together in online programs. There are different learning pathways. So we would tend to use a lot of different models. So you'll see our Absorb, Connect, Do. I know some of you have already attended some of our instructional design training, but we also have simple models like DIF, DIF. So when you're looking at a subject, what is D? What's difficult for people to understand? I, what's important for people to know? And F, what's frequently asked? So a course without instructional design can, run the risk of being a knowledge dump. If you haven't thought about your target audience, if you haven't thought about the behaviors that you're either trying to keep, improve, start, or stop, which is a little KISS behaviors model. If you haven't thought about that, then there's a danger that someone's just going through the motions. Courses should also be visually appealing. Now, you can't have a course that is effective and it's a good piece of training that really doesn't look nice, but I think in terms of modern expectations of users, we we are used to seeing very polished, visually attractive content. Certainly, if you have a marketing or comms team, they're going to want any materials to be on brand in terms of logo and colors. And whilst you could potentially do without an element of the visual appeal, it can become a distraction. I'm sure we've all maybe logged into either websites or portals, etc., that don't look very good. So someone asked there, what is the I in the diff model? So the I is what's important to know. So D is what's difficult to understand. Thanks, Kira. What's difficult to understand? I is what is important for people to know. What do they really need to know about this topic? And F would be what's frequently asked. You know, what are the questions that people struggle with, or the behaviors or the areas that people struggle with. In terms of visual appeal, I don't think the user interface in terms of, it should be clear to click on a course in terms of user interface design and graphic design, and it shouldn't get in the way of the user's experience. Courses should also be technically sound, and that's maybe something more for IT team, more for compliance, but certainly you shouldn't be going through a course and getting error messages. So, testing is important for a course. It's important that it hangs together well in terms of an instructional tool. So in terms of the in-house development process, on the left, what we have is really what we call the pro team. So this would mirror the roles that we would have and that we would recruit for within Orion. Now, I know that these are not all realistic. People would love to have a team of 10, 25 people that could work on your internal e-learning projects. For some, that's the case. You might have a decent sized team. For others, it might be much smaller than that. But obviously, in terms of some of the roles, you're going to need to be mirroring the skills that are required for these roles to some extent within your in-house development team. So for example, you're going to need a subject matter expert who knows about the topic in hand. That might be you on occasions, it might be somebody else. So you're going to have the skills of working with a subject matter expert to go through the content that they know. You're going to have to manage a project, maybe schedule out tasks amongst team members. You're going to have to make the course look good and ensure at least your consistency across courses. That can be a big thing when you have multiple content authors, getting everybody to do things in a consistent way. Because from an instructional perspective, having maybe consistent icons and a consistent look and feel actually helps the learner in navigating the course. They start to know, well, this is where the key points are located. This is where the additional resources are located. You're going to have to develop the course, and you're going to have to act as the role of an instructional designer. In more specialist areas, there might be AV skills if you're looking to add audio or video. So that would be sort of a pro team, but quite often what we would see when we deal with organizations is that might be IT, the team who are responsible for creating e-learning courses. More commonly, it's the training or learning development team, and quite often they maybe come from a classroom training background, but for various reasons, either organizational, strategic, they're either doing blended learning, which is a combination of classroom and e-learning, or they're developing pure e-learning courses in topics. So you might have a subject matter expert, and then it's just you. Now, we don't want in any way to sound defeatist. It is absolutely possible to create good quality, well-structured e-learning in-house, and the cost savings compared to an outsourced model can be quite attractive. But it would be unreasonable to expect that somebody within a training and learning and development team would have all of the skills and to the comparative level of somebody, let's say, who was just a graphic designer. A graphic designer who maybe had studied that for a number of years. It would be unrealistic that you potentially as a trainer, you might have some graphic design skills. So it's about getting the skills at the level that you need to do the job well. It's about recognizing the range of skills and the strengths that you have within your team, and maybe through specialization in particular parts of the process, you can actually together produce a better output. So it's maybe not the case that 5 people, 10 people go off and develop e-learning courses solely themselves from scratch. There might be somebody within your team who's responsible for QA, quality assurance testing and checking. There might be somebody who's a real whiz with an authoring tool. So it's about identifying the relative strengths that they have. Sometimes we find as well that you might not even have as an extensive team as the right-hand side. It might literally just be you. You are the subject matter expert. So maybe you're maybe in HR and you've been asked, we should, somebody's maybe blue sky thinking said, we should do this online. Could you do that up? We find a lot of organizations are worried that they don't know what they don't know about the e-learning process. So I want to both reassure those who are at the start that you can do this. And I also want to say to those that are quite advanced that it's okay to sort of get help either internally or externally in different parts of the process. In terms of how e-learning gets developed, we'll not go too much into this, but definitely recommend that everybody should have their own in-house development process. Now, this is a slightly different version of our own process within Orion. But in the first stage on the left-hand side, we have content research, audience analysis, content outline. Those are core sort of planning and instructional design activities, as is the storyboard. So we're going through and we're thinking about who our target audience are. We're applying different learning models. We're bringing together the content that we need. We're working with subject matter experts. And then we're storyboarding the content where we're starting to look about how is it going to be structured from an instructional perspective, what graphic design aspects are going to be incorporated as well. For some people, developing content in-house, it's appropriate to prototype, so you might build a little bit of content. And then you're going to have your main build, which is more getting into your technical tasks. So it's sort of from left to right. It goes instructional design, then you start to bring in the visually attractive element, then you start to bring the technically sound, so you're building. By the time you get to build, you should really know what you're doing. So there's so much that we could talk about that, and we're likely to do further webinars on particular parts of that process, such as storyboarding, etc., such as prototype builds, such as getting your process together. But it shows you a little bit, hopefully across the two slides, the rules that are involved, and then how those rules sort of would fit into a process. So we're going to ask our second poll now. And the question is, what is your biggest challenge as someone involved in content authoring? So we're going to ask you to select one of the following. Is it dealing with too much or too little source content? Understanding the technical aspects? Producing multiple courses with consistency? Getting the time to do things the way I want? Or something else? So I ask you to respond to that poll. Okay, give me just a couple more seconds. I think it's almost everybody. Okay, close. I'm going to share that. Okay, the results that we have, 25% say dealing with too much or too little source content. 29% say understanding the technical aspects. 8 say producing multiple courses with consistency. 25% say getting the time to do things the way I want. And 14 say something else. So again, on the something else, if you want to comment in the chat or questions, and we can look through some of those. So it's quite a mix across those. Obviously, dealing with we obviously picked these options for reasons. These are some of the challenges that we would hear of. Dealing with too much source content, so working with subject matter experts, that can be a key part. Understanding the technical aspects. We can talk a little bit about that. There's not too much that you need to understand from the technical aspects. I think that could be the thing that gets in the way. Someone has commented here, I think it's Stuart, said ensuring clear link between the content as input and learning outcomes delivered supported through a technical process. Okay, Caroline said all of the above, which is fair enough. I think I had an option in there that said help me. It's all of those things, but yeah. So it is multifaceted dealing with subject matter experts. The biggest challenge for Kate is that it's just her, and that can be a challenge. So certainly we find that internal content authors can be time poor. There's a lot of demands on you from the organization. So finding ways that can speed up your process, that can improve that consistency, that can help you break down the content. So it's really about having that really effective process for your courses, getting the time to do things the way you want. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in some of the challenges. So these are absolutely not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the skills required. So it's likely, maybe use you, Kate, as an example. It's likely, Kate, if you're on your own, you've maybe been given some courses to do. It could, it's going to be unrealistic that you do everything. You're not going to be doing necessarily on-site video shoots yourself, holding the sound boom and the camera in the other hand, do an AV. So it's important that we're realistic about what we can do relative to the size of the team and the skills that we have. But it's likely, as we said, every course, and everybody agreed here, every course should teach us something. So instructional design is definitely an aspect that you're going to have, into your courses. So if you want to engage in effective e-learning, then we're going to have to look at your instructional design skills. So an instructional designer, certainly if we were able to recruit for one, and sometimes we help our clients actually recruit for staff for their own team, not necessarily in the recruitment itself, but in the questions that they would ask of somebody. But an instructional designer needs to understand quite practically how people learn. So they need some element of educational theory. Doesn't mean that they need to have a PhD, but they need to understand how people learn and the techniques that could be used. It's important that they understand the e-learning process or the tools. So for example, if we were to develop a program within a tool like Articulate Storyline, it's important that the instructional designer knows that the program is being developed in Articulate Storyline so that they don't come back with unrealistic expectations that the program is going to be an interactive 3D augmented reality game. They need to know that if it's going into a slide-based authoring tool, what are the options that are available? So we make all of our templates available to the instructional designer who's working on a project so they know from an early stage what the end result's going to be. You need to be a problem solver. You need to have good communication skills because you're going to be working with subject matter experts. You need to sort of probe subject matter experts and be a diplomat, with those good interpersonal skills, because subject matter experts like nothing better than to hand you a ring binder with 300 pages in it and ask you to return the e-learning course by the end of the week. So you need to be fairly strong in probing them, showing them a little bit of the process, maybe creating templates that if somebody wants a course, here's what they have to give you. They have to think a little bit about the learning outcomes, and then it's the role of the instructional designer to tease those out. So you're going to need to know things like learning outcomes. You're going to need to have some learning models that you can apply to difficult topics in your armory, and you're going to need to be well organized. Then I've grouped graphic designer and course builder together. If you're on your own, you're likely going to be doing all three of these, but if you have other members of the team, you might maybe as a training manager be acting in the role as an instructional designer maybe with your team, then your team are going off and building the courses. So there's going to be an element of graphic design and an element of being a course builder. So that's our visually attractive and our technically sound. So you're going to need to have some understanding of good user interface design. You're going to have, like at the basic level, we talk about people having a good eye, that if you were to give somebody 5 people a task to create a document, then one might be laid out better than the rest. So it can be as simple as that. Somebody knows that something looks good, things are well positioned, that they're consistent. You might need technical design skills. It's likely you're going to be using, probably the most common would be to use an internal authoring tools such as Articulate Storyline or Adobe Captivate, or maybe more mobile tools like Elucidat or Gomo, and we can certainly provide a list of tools that are worth looking at. But you might need other technical design skills. So for example, we had a client very recently who was working with Chris. They changed their corporate branding. They had about 100 photos, and they needed to change the photos to reflect the new logo. So rather than doing a new photo shoot, because Chris would have skills in Photoshop, he's able to Photoshop those images, save that organization money. So sometimes there can be additional technical skills in terms of design or access to a range of tools, maybe simple audio recording and editing or simple video editing tools. So it might not be just an authoring tool. So some tools might be better at product simulations. If you're trying to teach people a lot about the use of IT systems, then a tool like Camtasia can be a good tool. I'm very big at talking about the toolbox concept. I think it's very important for internal content authors that when you do something, either from a technical standpoint or an instructional standpoint, or you acquire images for a program, that they are documented and put into a reusable toolbox so you can use them for the next program and you're not starting from scratch. So the courses that you're completing 24 months down the line are likely to be significantly better than the first batch of courses that you produce. So by always adding to that toolbox, you're actually building your capacity, you're documenting that. If somebody leaves the team, you've got all the things in the right place. So you need a good attention to detail. So someone has asked a question, is it common for subject matter experts and those providing content to think that graphic design is the same as instructional design? It's to be honest, it's probably more common they don't know what either of those is, but it is important to tell people, graphic design is the way that it looks, it's the icons, it's the branding, it's maybe an element of, there's elements of layout can actually be driven by instructional design, absolutely. So for example, a click reveal interaction where you have a lot of text content, it's driven by instructional design, but it also affects, the layout of the program. Subject matter experts most commonly, and I don't want to badmouth subject matter experts, but most commonly they are experts in their subject matter, and they don't really know commonly too much outside of that. So there is definitely a role for educating subject matter experts in the e-learning process, what you need from them, and the benefit to them that this is going to be a concise, high quality piece of training. So if you're course building, you need good attention to detail. You might have the benefit of maybe a colleague can pilot a course for you or check, pick up on your spelling mistakes. They happen. Pick up on maybe any aspects of the interactive elements that you've built that aren't working. Obviously, we would use a QA team to do that, but you need to be organized and resourceful. So I put in for the role of a project manager, which might be really the role of a team manager, that they need to be organized, they need to be resourceful. By that I mean they need to maybe be aware of what you have within the organization. So some organizations are blessed to have an AV team in-house. So, is there a way that you can push for that to be used for training? Some organizations, we worked with Glen Eagles Hotel, for example, they had really great marketing imagery. They're able to use that within their e-learning. You need to be a good delegator, good at scheduling. You need to be an internal advocate for e-learning, as well as a diplomat when dealing with subject matter experts. But probably the most important thing, I think, if you're managing a team of internal content authors, then it's probably up to you to establish and control the e-learning process. Who's going to do what are the guidelines, what are the rules that we're working towards, so we don't go off and create 5, 10 different courses that are very different in their style, that have elements missing. So documenting that process is a great thing, because ultimately I would say you're likely to be responsible for quality. In terms of our approach to capacity building, Orion, we do training in a range of topics. So I'll just launch. So we provide typically on-site training courses. They're sort of highly tailored. So we go on-site and we train in the use of authoring tools. So a lot of our courses would go across the different areas that we're talking about. So most commonly authoring tools, whether it's a tool like Storyline with a basics and advanced course that we have, or it's a general tool, we train across a number of tools. So that's really the practical use of them. The features, really getting those technical skills down. We talk about publishing courses. We talk about how to ensure that your course can be tracked. In terms of instructional design, we do a 1-day basics course and a 2-day advanced course, but we also look at more advanced sort of niche topics such as instructional scenarios, how to create effective scenarios, and how to use webinars. Now, I have to admit, I haven't been on the webinar course yet, so hopefully you can't see that, but I'll be going on that myself. But in terms, we have a course prospectus, so we'll walk you through. So just pick out one of these as an example. Let's see, we'll go back to Instructional Design Basics. So this will be our one-day basics course. We talk about, what is online learning. We talk about the pedagogy of online learning, different learning pathways, the different mix of approaches. We talk about learning outcomes, absorb, connect, do and connect framework. We talk about action mapping. It's very big on looking at behaviors that you want from people with courses. We talk a little bit about learning platforms and a little bit about authoring tools. So it's a good rounded introduction for people. In terms of the advanced course, we take that a step further and we're really looking perhaps more at the process, about planning and analysis, your curriculum design, your instructional design, how you write, do interactive writing for e-learning. So what we've done as well, so we, certainly a lot of organizations with the field of training, there are different sources for training. We are primarily, I suppose, an e-learning company. We focus on the learning, so it's very practical in terms of helping people. Quite often we'll have clinics, where you're actually working on something. So it's about finding out what you're working on and tailoring that to what people want to achieve. But we have seen, I suppose, a number of common queries in terms of the skills. People maybe don't have graphic design skills. They're maybe not sure of all aspects of instructional design. If you are coming from a training background, as I said, it's about rewiring the mindset for works well online. So we have combined training into what we call a little capacity building bundle. And within our bundle, typically, as a minimum, we would do instructional design training and authoring tool training. So you sort of know how to structure the course, and you know then how to practically use the tool, which might be something like Storyline or Captivate or another tool. But e-learning for in-house development is not, it's very much a journey. So sometimes we find that people would benefit from support. You benefit from the ability to ask questions. So we would include within our bundle an element of content author support. We also design authoring tool templates that are aimed at helping people to produce consistent courses, even if you're an experienced team. And we document everything in a content style guide. So if somebody within your team leaves the organization, then they don't take all the knowledge with them, that you can still continue and somebody can pick that up. So that is a big thing to do. I'll just show you a couple of examples of authoring tool templates. So this is a template we would have developed for the civil service. And we have, typically within our templates, we have about 22 different slide types. So I'll just show you the slide types here. So this is actually a template developed for, it's reusable, developed for a particular storyline, designed to be used by internal content authors, branded for this particular organization. So within this, you'd have little pre-built slides you can drop your content into. Now we just have dummy text in them, but you can see how a slide like this, very light instructional design, but it could be used to say there are 4 stages in a disciplinary process. Step 1, step 2, step 3. You have access to your downloads. We have a nice sort of player list window, so it doesn't overly feel like our particular storyline. Within this as well, there would be a set of icons that could be reused by the team. So it's elements to get consistency. There is instructional design is built into our templates. So even having something as simple as consistent icons means that learners become familiar, that they can access key points, so they know what that icon looks like. You can have video, etc., quizzes, etc. within that. Another example that we did for a team that's very advanced in terms of their technical skills and also in terms of their instructional design skills, but maybe we're looking to enhance the visual appeal of their courses, was a template we did for Scottish Power. So again, this is within our particular storyline, and the focus was to give a range of different options that the team could use for this. So for example, within this example, there'd be hotspot interactions that were built just with some nice little design effects, of hovers. There was a range of different menu types that we did for the team. There was different sets of icons that they could use. It's all to build up some assets into their toolbox that could be used. Again, different click reveals that could be used. So that's an example where you bring together maybe an element of training, to address skills, and then resources to enhance the process. So our capacity bundle is very much aimed at addressing the problems that people have in terms of consistency, in terms of the skills of instructional design or the technical skills with an authoring tool. And believe it or not, that is largely time today. So we've only really, delved in there briefly. I'll leave you with 5 tips, and then I want to answer any questions that you have. So my tips are: identify your team. It might be very obvious who your team are. I'll go back to you, Kate. It's very obvious who your team is, but you might be sitting in the same room as other members of your team, or there might be other skills within the organization that you could leverage. So for example, there might be somebody in your IT team who can check and look after the publishing of your courses or do a bit of QA. There might be an in-house AV team who can help you with that aspect. I would say as you do your first project, you're definitely going to learn lessons. 12 months down the line, your courses are going to be better. But the important thing is, lean, capture the gain, capture and document the lessons that you learn. And you might find that particular members of your team, over time, you've identified they're better at particular parts of the process. Document that process so everybody in the team knows this is how we do your learning. These are the guidelines you must follow. This is when it must go for my approval or internal approval. Establish and keep adding to that toolbox, both of instructional approaches. So even when we do outsource builds for an organization, whenever we do a project, we like to look, what can we keep from this project that will be useful to this client again? So for example, doing something for Scottish Water at the moment where we're building animations, but it's about quality systems, but that animation can be used across any module about quality systems to provide an introduction. So that's important. And then seek or help assistance where you require it. So a lot of our clients, after the capacity bundle, they look after everything themselves. Others, they get us to do some or all of the process. So maybe focus on to look at some of the questions that you have. Kate, you've asked just about some of the training courses that we do attend. I say typically we do on-site training, but I suppose off the back of this webinar, we are considering running some open courses. So if you are working on yourself, likely that would be available at a discounted rate. Now it probably wouldn't be quite as tailored as if we did it on site, but we're more than happy to have a chat with anybody who wants to discuss about that further. So if anybody has any questions, if you want to bring them in. Let me see. Okay, we'll just delete the ones that we've answered. Okay, so going back to what makes a good e-learning course, Nicola had picked, I picked something else because good e-learning course should have a mix of all the options, and I think you're correct on that, Nicola. Somebody just asked a question about exams. Maybe you could re-ask that again because I just accidentally deleted it. Caroline, you've asked about webinar training. Yes, if you look on the Orion website, you'll see details of our webinar course. Now, we tend to do that independent of the webinar tool. So webinars can be a great way if you've got a diverse workforce, geographically spread. Webinars can be good. So there's good instructional aspects to structuring and running a good webinar, which we think are largely independent of the tool. I haven't been on that course myself. Stuart, you'd asked any thoughts on assessment processes, i.e. not just interactivity, but assurance that people have learned. We're very big, Stuart, when it comes to assessment on behaviors, branching scenarios, for example, can be a great way to do that. If your focus remains on behaviors throughout the course, then asking questions that are linked to that are a good way to do it. We have an example of, certainly you can ask multiple choice questions. With authoring tools, that's maybe a lot of people's go-to. We have some sort of instructional templates within our sort of authoring tool templates that are quite simple from a technical perspective, but have good instructional thought behind them. So for example, I'll give you just one example, Stuart. If you were to ask somebody maybe an HR question, maybe there's an HR problem. If I asked you to, pick what would you do, multiple choice, that's quite a simple question. But most people make decisions about that sort of topic with the resources that they have in the company at that time. So if somebody comes to you with an HR complaint, you'll quite often look at the HR policy. So we have a little toolbox sort of assessment templates where we ask people the questions, but we give them the documents that they would have in that situation to hand, and they can use those documents. They can maybe have some background information on the staff member, and they can assess that way. So making sure that people have done it. Yes, you've got a combination of knowledge checks throughout. That's really focusing on our behaviours, but you might have, yes, within the course or within a learning management system, a summative assessment at the end. Someone's asked if we could email over the list of tools that are available for creating e-learning. Yes, we're happy to do that, make that available, either by email or on our blog. Kerry, good to see you here, Kerry. You've asked if we create our own modules, which are hosted on an LMS platform, can we update the modules from our end without having to ask a platform provider to upload new content? Yes, is a short answer. I'm always a great believer, you as an organization, you're the client, you can have what you want. If you were to create courses, say with a tool like Articulate Storyline, you can have the ability to upload that course. Certainly the provider who looks after your LMS should give you the ability to upload your own courses. I would basically be demanding that of them, is the short answer. Sabine, you've asked, do you agree that assessment is one of the most difficult bits? Yes. Yes, I would. So, assessment maybe becomes maybe slightly easier if the course is well structured, that you've really identified those behaviors, you've clearly explained them. It depends really, I suppose, on the type of topic. If it's knowledge-based, compliance-based, then a simple, multiple choice assessment might work. If it's behaviors-based, then I would say a scenario-based assessment approach is probably a better way to go. But yeah, assessments can be tricky. But there can be some innovative ways to do an assessment, and that's where things like new standards such as Tin Can help do that. Which e-learning development tools do we recommend are the best in terms of learner-centered e-learning and interactivity? I don't want to say none of them. I think e-learning tools they're not going to be a panacea. I think instructional design is the best thing that you can do regardless of the tool in terms of interactivity, learner-centered design. I think that maybe more comes from your process. The tool's unlikely to do that for you. Tools, if we were doing quite often we build modules and maybe an organization that maintains them themselves, or if we do our capacity building. The most common that we're doing it still with at the moment are Articulate Storyline 2 and Adobe Captivate. Someone's asked, completing assessment does not necessarily change behaviors. How do you measure impact of the training further down the line? Well, there you're probably getting more into the area of expertise of one of our instructional designers. So, certainly within Orion, we offer a free assessment, evaluation, 6 months post-deployment with all our projects. Really, you're getting into like Kirkpatrick's levels of evaluation, which is probably more in the expertise of our instructional designers than it is in mine. So, certainly having a robust evaluation and governance process is a big thing that's worth looking at. Somebody's asked, do we work with Adobe Captivate? And the answer is yes, we do. So we work really across a range of tools. So the likes of instructional design, is tool independent. We have an authoring tools course. If you look on our website, it's largely tool independent. So we've probably done about 7 or 8 different tools with that. Someone has asked some sort of practical questions. Is there a maximum or optimal number of training participants that can attend a webinar? Well, for a webinar, webinars you can do up to 1,000. So it just depends. It depends what type of webinar is it. Is it largely just knowledge transfer? We could have unmuted everybody and we could be having a discussion. Now that's maybe not going to work. We've got near 100 people, but it certainly would work if we had a smaller number of people and we were having to have a team discussion and maybe work through some case studies together or some problems or scenarios and learn from each other. That's actually a different instructional approach for a webinar. So within webinars, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Do we do any training on introducing interactive learning elements? maybe ask you, Lynn, if you could maybe expand on that, and I'll pick that up in just a minute. How many slides should an e-learning module be? Do we have evidence on a good average in terms of number of slides? Depends a lot, Lynn, on the source content that you're dealing with, but there's definitely a trend towards shorter, sharper pieces of learning content. So not everything has to be a course. Some things can be just in time learning as a short resource, or maybe just an interactive scenario or a case study. So it does depend a bit on the source content, but I wouldn't like to see a course that was much more than in a particular module for 45 minutes, but I would want as a learner the ability that if I did 20 minutes, I could leave the course, it would be bookmarked and I could come back to it. So part of e-learning is about that flexibility. It could fit around the learner as well. So you don't want slide after slide, but that's where instructional design and actually thinking about what's going on the slide and maybe some of the technical features that are available in authoring tools can help with that. The polls are great to maintain attention, says Grace. Doing an online seminar is a great reminder of the distractions people cope with when they're doing e-learning. It's true. It's easy to disappear off to Google. Thankfully, we can see we've actually maintained a pretty high attendance rate. We've been able to see, actually we can see who's watching the screen. So that's a good thing on webinar. So if you're speaking to 10 people and you find you got an attendance rate of 10%, it means that only one person has the webinar screen as their most prominent screen. So it's lots of little tools to help you spy on what's going on. Someone said, can you schedule automated updates post e-learning as a reminder to utilize learning? And yes, absolutely, Beatrice, that's a great question. And that brings in the idea of learning pathways, where a course is not an isolated training event, but it's part of a learning campaign over time. So what we like to do is think about, maybe we do a little teaser before the course. This is coming up. Are you aware of this? Maybe we do a refresher course, after the course, or we do some practical, or we'll do a scenario-based assessment to see how people retain what they learned. A lot of questions. Bear with me. I'm just working through these. Some of that's how much do we use PowerPoint or Microsoft Learning Content Development System to author? I'm not actually familiar with Microsoft Learning Content Development System. PowerPoint can be good for maybe prototyping a course. There are some authoring tools that do act like Articulate Studio, the precursor to Storyline, works as a ribbon actually within PowerPoint, and there's some other tools that do that as well. So yeah, PowerPoint is good. You want that additional functionality that potentially down the line the course can be tracked and reported on. So that can be a benefit even of using a PowerPoint plugin tool. But yeah, you can absolutely use PowerPoint. Sometimes we might prototype a course within PowerPoint, and it's a great way to get things going. Obviously, it's more focused on presentation, maybe not as much on learning. That's maybe one of the differences between it and something like Articulate Storyline. Someone said we want to try and move away from text-oriented slides and try and introduce more creative ways of engaging our learners. Any tips on doing this, e.g. how to integrate video clips, infographics? We've countless tips on that, Lynn. More than happy to have a chat with you. No obligation to use our services. We want to have a call about that. We can talk about some of those. So yeah, more than happy to do that. We are recording this webinar, so it's going to be made available, and we'll email across some tips and some of the useful resources that we've talked about today. So hopefully, as you said, hopefully we get a way to utilize some of the learning today. Can e-learning courses be referred to afterwards, i.e. available in email for future reference, etc.? Yeah, a great way to make your courses available is is on a learning management system, and a lot of systems will support the ability for you to re-enroll people in courses. A lot of them will support learning paths where you can trigger something, say 2-3 months, after a course, a little reminder, a little nugget of learning to remind people. So little nuggets of learning as part of a learning campaign could be a great way to do that. Someone has asked about the slides. Yes, we're going to make the slides available. In terms of our face-to-face courses, someone asked in terms of attendance. Typically we say 8 to 10. There's no real limit, but we like our courses to be quite practical. So for a trainer to get round the group and work with them practically on some of the tools, 8 to 10 is a good size for that. Would it be a good idea to make up an e-learning course on how to use your learning management system? That's a good question, Kevin. Yes, if you have a learning management system in-house, if people are finding certain things difficult to do, then product simulations are a great way to do that. So a tool like Articulate Storyline or Camtasia can be a great way to do that. So we do a screencasting course, which is all focused on that type of course. So that screen capture with tips showing people how to do things. Now, if people are having real issues with the learning management system, then you might want to look at the system itself. Certainly, we would work with a system very simple to use called Learn Upon. We work with a system called Net Dimensions as well. So just getting the rest of the questions here. What happens if you have more than one content expert with different views? Subject matter experts are absolute necessity for the process, but they can make it stressful as well. I think that's where I think if you're a project manager of internal e-learning, then you need to get across that you're as much an expert in the e-learning as they are in their subject area. So there's always there are always battles, so it should be done obviously in a professional and diplomatic way. But if they've got different views of what needs to be included, then you can say, yes, you can have, I always say to subject matter experts, you can have what you want included in the course. Absolutely, you can have that because you really know this topic, so it's a little bit of, smoke. But, we certainly understand that the best way for us to get the messages across, and we need free rein to do that. Christine, your question about getting in touch, I'm going to be giving you a call, Christine, today. We'll chat about that. We're just working through the remainder of the questions, just deleting them as we answer them. Just a few left. Might be close to this. We're going to email, say, the list of tools. Kate, more than happy to have a chat. Anybody who does want to contact me, my email is gavin.woods@orionlearning. We're gonna put that out to the group. Sarah, you've asked, is it common for subject matter experts and those providing content? I think we've answered that one. They do think that they're maybe not sure what graphic design, instructional design is. So certainly that's where documenting your process and maybe making that available to subject matter experts. We find that people want to control the content that they get. They don't want a knowledge dump. So if you can document your process and say, this is what we need. If you want us to do a course for you, we're more than happy to do it. This is what you need to give us. And we will provide something that looks like this. And you show them an example of the final course. Once they see the benefits of that, they'll maybe be a bit more malleable in working with you. Someone said, tell us more about Articulate Storyline. So Articulate Storyline is an e-learning authoring tool. So it's a slide-based tool, not dissimilar to PowerPoint. So we say on our course, if you know PowerPoint to a good degree, that is not essential, but it is an advantage. Now, what Articulate Storyline will bring is sort of template-based slide types to add interactivity to your courses. It'll also give you the ability to publish that course in a way that can be tracked and reported on by a learning management system. So it's probably one of the leading authoring tools. We're tool independent, but we do use it. We like the way it handles audio, video. It's got a good feature set. You'll probably actually find a blog post on our website actually looking at Articulate Storyline and some of the top features. So Rashta, I would suggest that you maybe have a look at that. And I think that brings us to an end, unless anybody has any additional questions that we haven't answered. So thanks for joining us. I say we love these webinars. We may even do we're looking at doing a bit of an internal content author clinic webinar with the whole thing. Maybe we get your questions in advance and we can prepare really good answers to them. But hopefully we'll answer some of those questions. I say we only really touched on this, so we'll maybe be getting in touch to get some feedback and look at other niche areas. So thanks for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. I say we'll be sending out my contact details. More than happy to have a chat with anybody who's attended who's just got queries. If you want to know more about Orion services, again, equally happy to have a chat about that. Thanks a lot, guys.